Yeah, breaking news. You won't believe what Elon Musk discovered about Omar Madani. But here's my point right here is Trump really want to get these Democrats in line and get them on his side. Cut the funding off their states. All the blue states that don't want to agree with Donald Trump, cut the federal funding off. And don't cut it off. Don't even try to put it back up for about 3, maybe 4 months. Starve them out with federal funding money. Then they'll fall in line. That's how this fucking North won the South. Federal war, the North cut all the South's trading routes off so they couldn't get no supplies in for the war. Started out. If Trump started the North out, the blue states out like the North did the South back in the war, Civil War, he'll get them where he needs to be at. But anyway, let's get back to where it says about Elon Musk right here. And all this breaking news here, so let's get into it, shall we?
Just indignation, the fraudsters. It's a tell. These NGOs that are crazy, like the $2 billion to Stacey Abrams NGO that basically didn't exist, and suddenly gets $2 billion awarded from the federal government. Why? And there are many such cases like that.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Elon Musk just announced and told his 230 million followers on X that Tim Walz should be prosecuted. He is calling for his prosecution for everything that they have found in the last few days and in the last few weeks. And also, he's made some massive uncoverings on Ilhan Omar that are now headlining the New York Post about her money, how she got her wealth. How in the world is she worth $30 million? And her husband is now involved with this $30 million firm, scrubbing names. And we're going to read all about it. And I'm going to tell you all about it because that's what's going on. But do you agree with Elon Musk? Well, here are some odds that I think are very much you need to look at, right? So we got the betting markets getting involved here. I mentioned this in my last video. Breaking 69% of Tim Walz, 69% chance that Tim Walz is charged with a federal crime. That is what the betting markets are saying that is going to happen to Tim Walz. And that's again coming behind Elon Musk calling for his arrest. But here's the big news, ladies and gentlemen. This is what we got to read about. So I want to tell you about this story that is headlining everywhere about Ilhan Omar and her husband. And by the way, who happens to be white. Didn't Ilhan Omar at some point say that white men were the biggest threat to America? Take a listen.
Our country should be more fearful of white men across our country because they are actually causing most of the deaths within this country.
So isn't that absolutely insane? Well, here we go. Here's the big story, ladies and gentlemen. So more fraud. Ilhan Omar's husband quietly scrubs names from VC website amid the Minnesota Somali welfare fraud. So here, this is coming directly from, ladies and gentlemen, the New York Post. And they are saying here, flat out making this a mainstream story. Ilhan Omar's husband's $30 million firm quietly scrubs names from the website as squad member faces mounting questions on sudden wealth amid Minnesota welfare fraud. So she got rich during the time the taxpayers were getting robbed. Let's read more about this because it gets pretty crazy. So, embattled representative Ilhan Omar's husband's venture capital firm quietly scrubs key officer details. So that's from his company, including former Obama officials, as scrutiny grows over the family's skyrocketing wealth. The Post learned Omar from Minnesota went from nearly broke to being worth up to $30 million in just 1 year. What? As a massive up to $9 billion fraud scheme involving the Somali community in her district unfolding right under her nose that she didn't know about. So during the time she didn't know that all this Somali fraud was going on, worth up to $9 billion, is around the time that her net worth, she went from being broke to her net worth being up to $30 million. How in the world does that happen? So Again, I'm reading this from New York Post. I ain't making this up.
Enter Congress with a negative net worth in 2019 and shoot up to a $30 million net worth just in 6 years. Let's ask Ilhan Omar. I expose how corrupt politicians are, so make sure you follow me. In 2019, Ilhan Omar was elected into Congress. She started her first year, and her financial disclosure for that year was a negative net worth. When this was first reported, she absolutely denied the fact that she's a millionaire. But then a couple months later, she filed her financial disclosure. We saw a 3,500 increase in net worth compared to the previous year. Now, members of the U.S. House of Representatives earn about an annual salary of $174,000. Even if she saved every penny from her salary from the last 6 years, it wouldn't be anywhere close to $30 million. So what did suddenly happen? Oh, let's look at her husband's businesses, Tim Minette. Ilhan and her husband own 2 businesses, one of them being a winery and the other one being a venture capital firm. 2023, the value of the winery was roughly anywhere between $15,000 to $50,000. And just a year later, that same winery is now valued at anywhere between $1 million to $5 million. If you think that's suspicious, wait till you see this venture capital business. In 2023, the company had less than $1,000 in assets. Well, a year later, this venture capital that anyone can invest into is now valued at $5 million to $25 million. And what's even crazier is that the company claims to have $60 billion in assets under management. So Ilhan, please tell us, how does this happen? Is this just by luck? Or is somebody or a foreign country perhaps funding this?
Ilhan Omar's net worth has jumped $30 million in 2 years. So while every day when you punch that clock and you grind away, and then you come home still worrying about whether you're going to be able to feed your family at the end of the week, this is what's going on in her living room. Her husband launched a venture capital company, Rose Lake Capital, in 2022. You want to know what they do? They sniff out every federal subsidy, every green energy tax credit, all the ESG slush funds, every loophole Congress writes, and packages it nicely for fat insiders for profit. That's not smart investing. That's professional looting, using programs on the backs of taxpayers that are funded by insiders in Congress. That's the same playbook that we're seeing in Minnesota with all the fraud, though, aren't we?
So close to 90 people have been charged so far, including at least 3 with direct ties to Lefty Squad members. So you got 3 people out of the 90 directly involved with Ilhan Omar, though she has not been charged. So let's dive even deeper, ladies and gentlemen. So here we go. It was Somali-born Omar who was seen in the resurfaced video last month dishing out food in a restaurant now in the heart of the scandal, who introduced the legislations critics say paved the way for what the feds have called the biggest fraud of the pandemic. The Jimmy Choo wearing socialists introduced the Meals Act in Congress in 2020, relaxing oversight of government-sponsored children's meals programs during the pandemic, which critics say allowed fraudsters to claim they served millions of meals without verification while pocketing millions of dollars in government subsidies. Shortly after the scheme played out, Omar's husband, political consultant Tim Minette, launched Rose Lake Capital in 2022, a venture capital management firm. So is that where, look, I'm just going to be a conspiracy theorist here for fun. This is just for fun. Now, I'm not claiming anything, but during 2022, after all that money, he started his venture capital business and, come on, we're tracking the money here. So the company saw its reported value go from nearly zero in 2023 to 5 million, to between 5 million and 25 million in just a year, and somehow claims to have already amassed 60 billion assets under management, an amount many money managers on Wall Street say they only dream about. So here's, and I quote, I want to quote this here. There's a lot of strange things going on, said Paul Kaminer, counsel to the National Legal and Policy Center. She was basically broke when she came into office, and now she's worth perhaps up to $30 million. She needs to come clean on these assets. Rose Capital, which touts its deep global networks built on the ground work in more than 80 countries, had less than $1,000 in assets in 2023 alone, according to Omar's financial disclosure. Yeah, here's the video of her promoting the Meals program. These are some of the pictures. This is her and her husband, right? And yet, despite the reported windfall, the business's only address is a WeWork in D.C., according to its LinkedIn LinkedIn page. So between September, October, when the federal prosecutors announced charges to 8 more individuals, including 6 of the Somali descent, for their roles in the welfare scheme, the names and the bios of Rose Lake's nine officers and advisors were removed from the website. None of them were charged in the fraud, though. These names include lobbyists and former Obama ambassador to Bahrain, Adam Arel, former senator and Obama ambassador to China Max, and DNC finance chair associated Alex Hoffman, former DNC treasurer William DeRoe, and former ex-CEO of Amalgamated Bank Keith Metrick. So these are people that, again, are from the institutional bank of the Democratic Party. Meanwhile, a California winery that previously faced fraud allegations was declared a failed venture in 2023 and was suddenly worth between $1 million and $5 million in 2024, a windfall of 9,900%. Which is her husband in 2023, accusing him of swindling him out of $900,000. He fraudulently misrepresented LLC that was a legitimate company. Her husband claimed that he simply struggled to build a business during the pandemic. The case settled out in court in November. So all of these things are very highly connected. He had a winery during 2023, her husband did, that was accused of fraud, over $900,000 in fraud. So again, ladies and gentlemen, this is all crazy information received on Omar 7,400 in direct donations from at least 3 now convicted fraudsters. Though the squad member defended she returned the donations after the scandal broke. He's closely been linked to at least 2 individuals from Minnesota's Somalian community who have been charged in fraud. So crazy what is happening, ladies and gentlemen. Shout out to the New York Post. They're coming out with all of this. Pictures of her and her husband. Her husband's past could have something to do with what's really going on here. And Manette did not return the Post messages, and both his businesses numbers were not working when they reached out to him. So the Treasury Department has already launched an investigation into the alleged money laundering. When they reached out to Omar's communication, directly sent to the Post a message saying that the office was closed until January 5th without offering an alternative contact. So that's pretty much where this ends from the New York Post. Again, Elon Musk behind a lot of this and what's going on. He's been posting about Tim Walz. Tim Walz is a crook. He's been saying it all over the internet, pretty much coming out and saying that he should be arrested. And Tim Walz, I want to play this 16-second clip that Elon Musk shared about Tim Walz. Take a listen.
Insurance program for you that allows you again to take care of what you need to take care of without being forced to choose between your family, your bonding with your child, your own health, and your economic well-being. Because in Minnesota, you can do both, and we've proved that time and time again.
Oh, here he is. Despite the massive fraud and Somali scandal, Tim Walz announces a new welfare program for Somalis and other illegals. The taxpayer-funded Family and Medical Leave Program gives Somalis up to 20 paid weeks off per year to bond with a child. Cut off federal funding to Minnesota as soon as possible, says Elon Musk there. And again, there is a whole bunch of things coming out from this. This was Nick Shirley speaking of, these daycare centers. Remember when journalists used to do this sort of thing and win awards for it? Now they sit front row on laptops and chase gossip. And here's what Greg Gutfeld is talking about, that Nick Shirley ended up going to Minnesota and finding all these things. Here's a small glimpse of what he ended up finding that is very important and relates to all of this.
All of the healthcare companies, loads of them right here. We want healthcare. Yes, we'd like to speak about getting healthcare here. No. Why can't I get healthcare here? Wait. Warning, you are under video surveillance. No trespassing, security armed. This is the strangest place I've ever been to get healthcare. Just a bunch of different places. Healthcare here, healthcare right here. Another healthcare company right here. There are 3 healthcare companies inside of this building right here in this room of 7C. Now we have another Helping Hands Home Care LLC, another healthcare company. Present Help right here. We're looking for the best rates of healthcare here inside this building because we have so many options. Who can we talk about getting the best healthcare?
I don't know.
No?
Sorry.
All right. We will not get any healthcare here. David, this is one of the stranger places I've ever been. Literally, healthcare every door you go to, yet nobody will give you a rate. How much money do you think's been funneled through this building?
Every year, I would say 50 to 60 million at least.
And finally, we were accepted into one of the daycare centers and they actually took down our information to give us a rate. However, when we left, we were then met with the police.
Hey, we received a complaint that gentlemen matching your description were in this building harassing the individuals who stay here.
Oh, we're checking out the rates for healthcare. Because there's 14 healthcare companies inside this building, so. Okay.
Well, that's not what he said. He said there's 14 companies here. And he's trying to assume because they're Somali providers, everyone here is fraudulent.
Okay. So
he's here with some kind of like propaganda.
No, we're just checking.
No, this is a area that we're allowed to enforce trespassing ordinance. Is there any other reason that you guys are here?
Well, we were checking rates.
No, he's not.
We were checking rates. We asked for rates.
No, you're not.
Okay. I'm gonna have, if you guys are all good, we're gonna step outside and we can continue this conversation.
All right, let's leave. So, all right, we're getting escorted out right now. The police have arrived. We were checking out the rates, seeing what was happening inside this building. No one would really speak with us. We did go inside the one daycare center, and she actually did give us rates for childcare. Much respect to that lady. What's the problem, officer?
Well, so again, we've been getting reports from multiple individuals that you guys were harassing individuals who work here. At the end of the day, this is private property, and it's one that people are allowed to ask you to leave, and it's also one the Minneapolis Police Department is allowed to enforce trespassing ordinance at this address.
Yeah.
So
as we got escorted out of this building, the Somalis filmed us as we left, and we headed over to the next building that had 22 of the same home health care providers operating from inside of the building.
Right here you have.
I've been covering Trump's immigration agenda all year, and Trump has done a lot.
This enormous country destroying invasion has swamped communities nationwide with massive crime, crippling costs, and burdens far beyond what any nation could withstand.
Illegal border crossings are at historic lows, deportations are climbing, and numerous avenues for legal immigration have been shut down. But the biggest story has been President Trump's highly visible enforcement efforts all over the country, but especially in big cities like here in Chicago. I came to the city to see how immigration enforcement has changed the community over the last year.
On day one, I will launch the largest deportation program in American history.
Immigration was one of the issues that helped Trump clinch the election in 2024 after millions of immigrants crossed the border illegally under the Biden administration.
And there's only one way to fix that, and it's to get them out. And it's not pretty, it's not nice, but it has to be done.
Chicago was rumored to be one of the first cities to be targeted in the crackdown. Before Trump's term started, Chuck Hernandez, chairman of the Chicago Republican Party, hosted border czar Tom Homan in this area.
And we're going to start right here in Chicago, Illinois.
I was in law enforcement for almost 30 years, and I come from an immigrant family, right? I love immigrants, but we need to know who's coming into our country.
Soon after Trump took office, raids by Immigration and Customs Enforcement ramped up around the country.
I think they can make us be silent!
As of mid-December, ICE has deported more than 450,000 people, according to an agency official. In September, the Department of Homeland Security launched Operation Midway Blitz in Chicago. The Border Patrol, which typically doesn't work inside the country, led the operation. Under the command of Greg Bovino, agents combed Latino neighborhoods for people they suspected of being here illegally. They've also been accused of using aggressive military tactics to capture migrants and counter protesters.
Our officers act legally, ethically, and morally in all law enforcement actions, whether it's Los Angeles or Chicago.
There are a lot of people who try to say, deport the criminals, but leave everyone else be. How do you feel about that?
The city of Chicago can easily turn these people over to the federal government and work with them. But because they're being defiant, we're seeing that ICE is being forced to go into neighborhoods and try to apprehend these individuals. And there